Hi folks, Toad Hancock here with Visordown.com and welcome to the review of our Triumph Street Triple S. To the naked eye, this looks like a Street Triple S in whatever red it is that Triumph have chosen to paint it in, but it's not, because this is the 660cc A2 licence compliant Triumph that in restricted form puts out around about 47 brake horsepower. But unless you know what to look for, i.e. the little changes down there in the engine, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And it sounds just like a Street Triple, which is great. So let's go through the bike in a little more detail. So the engine first off. So it's a bespoke unit in this bike, which, as I've already mentioned, is 660cc. It's putting out 47 brake horsepower to be A2 compliant, and it puts out about 60 newton meters of torque. So the torque figure is very similar to the 675cc or the 765cc motor. It's not a million miles away, but it's just the power that's been capped on this one to make it A2 compliant. So peak power comes in at 11,000 RPM. I don't believe that. I think it comes in a lot lower than that. It revs on until 11,000 RPM, but really there's nothing much happening above sort of 9,000 RPM. But that is all going to be down to the restriction that the bike has got. And the way that you have to ride it is you don't keep it in the sweet spot of the power. You keep it in the sweet spot of the torque, because it's got quite a fair bit of torque for such a light machine. So as long as you keep it around sort of 5,000 to 8,000 RPM, you'll be in that fat part of the torque curve, which is where you're going to get the most shove. Once you get outside of that torque curve, the acceleration continues at motorway speeds and higher, but it just gets really, really slow, and it's really laboured getting up to that top speed. But again, that is totally down to the A2 compliancy of the bike. And if you did your full bike test and didn't want to be on a restricted license, you can remove that and the bike will have around about 100 brake horsepower. It is a bike that's built down to a budget. It's supposed to be an accessible entry-level machine for new riders or riders moving up the ranks. So it's not got the best, the top-of-the-range suspension that you find on the other Street Triples. It's non-adjustable at the front with just manual preload adjustment at the rear, and it is shower front and rear. It's not the best, but it is good enough. It's adequate. I mean, it's comfortable. It's a little bit soft. It dives really, really heavily on the brakes, and you can't dial that out. Sadly, you'd have to get yourself a set of progressive fork springs to actually try and eradicate that. But you know what? It's a good starting point for a bike, and it'd be great for a new rider, because it kind of feels like just a slightly bigger 125cc machine. It's got that quite kind of soft compliancy that kind of makes a new rider feel safe and secure and at home on the road. So yeah, it's budget items with the suspension, but you know, it serves a purpose and it does it fairly well. As I just alluded to with regards to the suspension, it does wallow a little bit. The back end's not so bad, but it is the front end does wallow a little bit. But other than that, it's just pure Street Triple. It's as happy in town as it is out on the open road. And when you ride these things around town, you can really see why they're so popular in big cities like London. Because despite the fairly wide handlebars, they're great for whipping through the traffic. They turn so quickly. I mean, you just drop it into a corner and it just falls and goes. Diablo Rosso Corsa tyres on it, they're not the best. I mean, they don't really heat up very much at all. But again, they're not going to go putting Diablo SPs on there, because they're kind of reserved for the higher levels of the Street Triple family tree. So all in all, the handling is good. Obviously, it's more at home out on a twisting B road, not so good on the motorway. If you're at 70 miles an hour, the wind blast is going to quickly become quite tiresome, as I found out on the ride home from the factory on it the other day. But you know what, it's a naked, and you know that when you're buying them. So yeah, the handling's good, let down slightly by the slightly wooden feeling tyres, but overall, 2 thumbs up from me on that one. It looks as though Triumph have had a good old rummage through the parts bin, because down there we can see some rather aged Nissin calipers, which only have 2 pistons per caliper. I don't know of many other brand new bikes that you can buy that have only got 2 pistons on the front brake, but there we go. And they are a 310mm disc, and you know what, they're actually surprisingly okay. They're not They don't offer massive amounts of bite or feel, but you can haul the bike up quite quickly. I mean, we're not talking about an overly heavy machine here, but yeah, it will haul up fairly well. The ABS system it's going to be an old generation ABS system that I've fitted to the bike, and it works fine. You feel it cutting in on the back wheel on sort of dusty surfaces, but other than that, it's fairly unobtrusive. You can't switch it off at all. The only sort of option you've got is to leave the ABS on, but again, it's a new rider's bike for people who've just passed their A2 licence test. You don't want to give them all the toys to go and have a crash now, do you? So as I just alluded to, the ABS system is non-switchable, and you do get just 2 riding modes with the bike, which is rain, which has got a slightly softer throttle map, and you've also got road, which is the full throttle map. Honestly, I can tell the difference between them, really. It's slightly more sluggish in the rain mode, but I wouldn't see any reason why a new rider would have to change between the two. Other than that, you've got a couple of odos and some trip meters, range to empty, odometer, and a few other goodies, all operated through this I button on the left-hand handlebar. The dash is great. It's quite nice to have an analog rev counter, big analog rev counter on the right hand side. I quite like it. It's quite retro. And the LCD dash on the left hand side is clear and easy to read, and you've also got these really quite cool little blue LED lights that come on as you're getting up towards the red line of the bike, which makes you feel like you're on something much sportier than you actually are, which is cool. So what do we like about the Street Triple S A2? I really like the fact that unless you are probably a member of staff of the Triumph factory, you're not going to know that it's an A2 licensed bike. I think the only thing to tell you that there's any difference is there's some really minor differences down there. I also like that it actually handles surprisingly well, given that it's got actually quite budget suspension and old spec brakes on it. You can still hustle it down a country road, you just have to kind of ride it like a 2-stroke and get it in the sweet spot. I also like the fact that if you ride this for 2 years on a restricted licence, you then go back and you do your full motorcycle test and you can ride an unrestricted bike. What you can actually do is take this back to your Triumph dealer and they will unrestrict it, so you'll have a full power, not totally full power because it's still only a 660, not a 765cc, but you'll have the full power version of this bike, which I was told by Triumph's one of Triumph's technicians is going to be around about the 95-98 brake horsepower mark. It's quite a bit of money, so I mean, getting on for £9,000 for a bike that's A2 compliant. Yes, you can de-restrict it if you want to when you go to take your full test, but if you fall out of love with motorcycling, or you find out that it's not for you, then you're stuck with it and you're going to have to sell it as an A2 restricted bike, which is the easiest thing to do. And as a fully licensed rider, I'd also like the traction control to be switchable, but obviously that's not going to be something that the Triumph team would unleash on the world, is a new rider with traction control turned off. I don't think that would be a very good idea. It's a great looking bike. I mean, it's a Street Triple. They're fantastic looking machines, and they're one of the best selling bikes in Triumph's range. They also rule the roost in big cities, and you see just hundreds of them at race meetings up and down the country lining the car park, and there's a good reason for that, and that is that the Street Triple formula of, you know, a revvy triple engine in a naked sporty frame with good looks is a winning combination, and I like the way that Triumph have opened it up to the A2 licence market. I think it's a really good move. I don't know how many they're going to sell, because the A2 licence pool is, I don't know how big that is, but it's not going to be a huge portion of the market, but they have tried to make it as sort of appealing as possible by offering people the chance to unrestrict it once they've passed their full test. So, I mean, it's a cool looking bike. It is a bit expensive, especially when compared to the A2 offerings from the likes of Kawasaki and Suzuki. But yeah, if you want a British-built naked A2 motorcycle in your garage, there really is only one place that you can go, and that's Triumph. You read a full review on Visordown.com.